There is always a voice in the back of your mind that is telling you to take a day off. Start tomorrow. You're not capable of achieving this. That voice is your lower self. It will always be knocking, but how will you answer? Today we'll be speaking about your lower self holding you back from what you are supposed to become and how to navigate those negative thoughts when they appear. Without further ado, let's get into why we need to speak about this. Accept that no matter how much you improve, it will always be there. This is crucially important because even within myself, when I started my self improvement journey, I believed that, the simple things. If I got to a 300-day meditation streak, I would stop having negative thoughts. I would stop overthinking. I wouldn't be, having distractions bother me, whatever the case may be. But this is a delusional thought because it will always be there for you to be lazy. Those thoughts will always be there for you to take a day off. Those thoughts will always be there telling you that you are not good enough to achieve what you are trying to achieve. And you need to realize this from the beginning. That was one of the biggest mistakes I made when I started self-improvement, was that if I hit these arbitrary goals at the end of the day, these 300-day meditation streak, whatever, praying every single day, those are important and those are going to improve your life, like I spoke about in the previous podcast. But the thing is that for you to think that's the cure to all your problems is not going to help you, because it is not, right? It's not going to fix the years of bad habits and the years of you having that mental warfare. It will always be there. It's just, how are you going to respond when they appear? Because that is the most important thing. A lot of the times, for example, let's say you've been waking up early every single day for the past 3 weeks, and it's been quite easy for yourself. You thought to yourself it would be more difficult, but you've actually been keeping up with it, and it's been easier than you once thought it was. But on the fourth week, you wake up one day and the thoughts are telling you to sleep in, right? And you ask yourself, why am I having these thoughts now when I just went 3 weeks steady? And it's because there is no cure to that, right? Your lower self is always knocking. It's always telling you to do less, to, doubt yourself. And you just have to understand that it will always be there. And when it's always there, all that matters is how you respond when those thoughts come, right? For example, I was able to wake up early today with ease. It's a Monday. Obviously, there's some Monday motivation to start the week off well. But at the end of the day, I need to realize that when it gets to Wednesday or Thursday, those thoughts to sleep a bit more and go to the gym in the evening are going to be there, right? It's delusional for me to think they won't be there because they were there last week. It just matters, how will I respond to those thoughts? Will I sleep in or will I get up? Right? So I think that's the most important thing when it comes to your lower self, is understanding that it will always be there. And David Goggins gives a great example of this. He says, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said that his old self is always there, and the second he turns off who he is now, that person appears, right? Let's take a quick break to speak about the sponsor for the podcast. I am now working with a company called Attilius Apparel, and if you want Christian fitness wear that looks like this, or this, click the link in the description. Now let's get back into the podcast. Because you have lifelong bad habits in your life. And for you to think that you just doing 3 weeks of mindfulness and 3 weeks of discipline, all those things are going to disappear for the rest of your life and it's going to be smooth sailing, it's not going to happen. And I guess to the extreme of David Goggins, because he's his own individual, that might be too extreme to always have that, grind and that mindset always turned on. But you just need to be able to navigate when you need to have that mindset and when you can kind of switch it off, right? Because this is something that I've been thinking about recently. when it comes to self improvement is that you don't want your whole personality to be self improvement, to always be speaking about how to better yourself, because many people around you might find that annoying and they might not want to associate with you, or not even associate with you, but not want to be around you because it's constantly talks about self improvement and all these things, right? So you need to be able to kind of switch that off and keep it to yourself. And it's more difficult. I get what like Goggins is saying. It's more difficult to switch it off and then have to turn it back on when it's needed. It's much easier to just have it on all the time, but that's a practice within itself, to be disciplined, to be able to kind of switch that mindset on and switch it off as you want to. And I think it'll take a lot of time to get to that point. Like I was saying earlier, these lifelong bad habits that you have in your life aren't going to change overnight. You're not going to watch one motivational video and completely change who you are as a person. You need to realize that today might have been easy to complete all your tasks and to stay disciplined and to be very focused on your self improvement journey. But tomorrow will come and that experience will be completely different from today, right? There's a lot of factors. Did you get more sleep today? Maybe that made it easier to complete all your tasks. And I think where you actually build who you are and you build that discipline and you build your confidence is on the days where you absolutely don't want to do anything and yet you still show up for yourself. So you need to recognize that those bad habits that you have in your life isn't going to change overnight. The biggest practice, though, that I would say, and I was just reading one of my notes, the biggest practice that I would say that you can implement right now when those thoughts come is you want to, remember who you were and also recognize all the progress that you have made since you were that person with bad habits and your lower self, right? If you're able to recognize, man, I've made a lot of progress by not giving in to my lower self, I can't do it this time, it'll be much easier to kind of curve or to kind of dodge that temptation to get back to who you were. I had a template, a meme that I wouldn't even call it a meme, but like a relatable post that got 1 million views on my Instagram, and it was Thorfinn trying to stab someone, the younger version of him, and it was the now version of him, the older version, holding the knife, and he was bleeding, and that is like the perfect picture of your lower self, right? Is that even in the moments where you're going to resort back to your old ways, it's up to you to recognize that you're not that person anymore and for you to kind of stop that before it spirals away. And maybe in the thumbnail I'll use that same photo because I love that picture, and I knew once I posted that video it was going to do very well because I know it's relatable to so many people. So that is the thing is even if you read Vinland Saga without spoiling it, it's you see that Thorfinn at times is almost resorting back to who he once was, and he stops himself, right? Even though it's been years since he was that like bad person, right? So for you to think that you're just going to get rid of all of those feelings and all of those desires to make mistakes and all these things is delusional. You have to keep in mind that those kind of desires or that feeling to do wrong or to make a mistake or to go back to your old self will always be there. You just have to catch yourself before it spirals out of control. The next thing you could do when faced with these moments is think about how your future you will look if you keep listening to that voice. Imagine you need to wake up early because you have so much to do in a day and you're trying to progress to this one goal. Imagine if you wake up this morning, you want to go back to sleep, and then think to yourself, imagine if I just kept sleeping in past the time I know I needed to get up. What will I look like a year from now? Right? Because the best thing I love about self improvement is that who you become in the future is just an accumulation of your daily habits, right? If you want to become a good copywriter, good email marketer, right? What what does a day look like for you, right? Are you reading copy? Are you reading good emails? Are you reading good sales pages that convert, right? If you do that on a daily basis, if you're doing your outreach, you could kind of predict how your future will look a couple months from now if you stay consistent with that. And that's the thing, people overcomplicate how it is to reach goals, but it is very simple. It's just, doing the right things on a day to day basis. And you know within yourself that if you stay consistent, you're going to see results. It's like content, right? When I was posting 3 videos a day, when I started posting 3 videos a day and I was starting to see little results, I understood that if I just stick to this for the next year, I know I would have made a dent. I know I would have gotten closer to the goal, the ultimate goal. So you know exactly what needs to be done. You just have to show up for yourself every single day in order to make that happen. So when you're faced with those moments of going back to who you used to be, just recognize that if you do that, and if you do that consistently, the future you will not look like the future you that you wrote down, that you kind of visualize that you want to be if you keep falling back into your old ways. And this is how you build the skill of discipline, is that every time you overcome your past self, you are becoming a more disciplined version of who you are, because that is difficult. It's difficult to, maybe you're someone that procrastinated a lot and you go 4 days without procrastinating, getting all your tasks done, and then you're faced with that feeling to do it again and you don't do it. Those are the moments where you build the most amount of discipline. People think discipline is just built in the gym, but that is a great way to be disciplined. For example, if you're someone that struggles to read on a day-to-day basis and you're starting with 10 pages and you do it pretty consistently, and then one day instead of reading you want to scroll, but in that moment you kind of switch your mind and you realize the fact that I don't want to do it right now is the whole reason why I'm going to do it, and then you end up reading. Your skill of discipline, it's like points just went up, right? That's the best way to look at it. So that is, if you could kind of look at it like a game in a sense and think, oh, in those moments, that's when I build myself the most, that's when I earn the most amount of points, then it'll become much more easier to not fall back into your lower self. So everybody, your lower self is knocking. How will you answer? I think this is so important when it comes to your self-improvement journey, and it's such a crucial topic and many people don't speak about it because a lot of times self-improvement is sold as the fix to your entire life, and it's the answer that you're looking for. It is. Self-improvement changed my life, but it won't always be the cure in those moments. You're going to go back to who you once were. You're going to make the same mistakes, but you only make those mistakes if you're not present and if you don't realize that your lower self was maybe the worst version of you and you don't want to become that person again. So when that lower self is knocking, are you going to answer by falling back into those old ways, or will you overcome that feeling and build the discipline that's needed to become the best version of yourself? Meditate on this, my friend. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast and making it this far. If you enjoyed it, remember to follow us on Spotify. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Let me know in the comments what has been the most impactful episode so far, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you, everybody, and take care.